Isn't this just one of the most satisfying things you can do in a game of League? With the press of a button, the entire mini wave just disappears in an instant, and it feels so good to do. But unfortunately, doing this is one of the first of many mistakes you're probably making without even realizing it. League is a complex game after all, and because of this complexity, there are a ton of mistakes that go unnoticed since you don't always get an obvious feedback loop that tells you what you did was wrong. Which is why in this video I'll highlight all of the most common mistakes that you probably don't even know you're making. So why is Renekton one-shotting this minion wave a mistake? Isn't he just preventing his tower from taking unnecessary minion damage? Well, he is, but he's also ruining his wave state entirely. When a wave crashes into a tower, it's generally best to try and kill the minions as slowly as possible. This way your next arriving wave out of base will walk out and get stuck on the enemy minions that are now attacking your tower since you haven't killed them. This means the enemy minion wave that is mirrored to yours walking out of base will simply walk to the center of lane, find nothing, and just keep on walking forward until they meet your minions just in front of your tower, giving you a super safe wave state and a guaranteed slow push you can use going forward. This works super well and consistently as well because minions have a hidden passive. If a minion starts attacking a tower, they lock onto it and they cannot switch target for any reason, meaning your minion wave stays completely healthy and so you always get that wonderful slow push for your next 2 to 3 waves afterwards. By making the super satisfying mistake of one-shotting the wave, you're actually preventing all of this from happening. So whilst you may save a couple of hundred damage to your tower, you're also, more importantly, putting yourself in a far less advantaged position for the following waves coming afterwards. Now, as mentioned already, this tip is the first of many invisible mistakes I'll be pointing out to you in this video, all in the effort to help you improve and become a better player. Speaking of improving your play, I'm excited to announce something really cool. I've teamed up with Skillcapped in order to create a series of guides focused on helping you do exactly that. What's awesome about working with Skillcapped while making these guides is they let me have full control over everything that goes into them. So everything you get is entirely thought up, written, voiced, and directed by me, with it all being brought to life by the amazing visuals of the Skillcapped editing team and what they can put together. And trust me guys, I'm a self-taught editor. The graphics they can do are way better than the ones I make using Canva. Yeah, I use Canva. So far in the guides I've made, there are 3 sections available to watch right now. For example, in part 1, you'll find a video explaining how roam timers work on support. In part 2, there's a video dedicated to explaining post-level 6 jungling. And in part 3, there's one dedicated to macro for the side lane roles. That way you can choose to watch just the sections that are relevant to your role, or if you're an overachiever, you can just watch the whole thing from start to finish. What needs to be mentioned as well is that you get access to all of this with a regular Skillcap subscription, and of course you get access to the entire Skillcap library as well, and holy shit guys, there is so much stuff in there. But to be honest guys, who cares? We know what you're signing up to watch in the end, right? They were even nice enough to give me a special link with a discount code attached to it that you guys can take advantage of, so use the link from the video description below to get the discount and enjoy this partnership that Skillcap and I have cooked up. Now with that said, on with the video.
My name's Rogue and I played League of Legends professionally for 7 years. Now I'm a full-time content creator and coach for all ranks, Iron through to Challenger. So if you want more information of what a coaching session with me will look like, you can find more information by following the link in the video description below.
One of the most common mistakes that new and lower rank players make is that after they get a kill, they crash a wave into a tower and overstay to take turret plates instead of recalling. All the while their opponent comes back to lane with full health and items and just kills them. No, this isn't the hidden mistake I've got to tell you about. I already expect most of my audience knows that recalling is the #1 priority on a wave crash. The hidden mistake most often people make is that they don't hit the tower for long enough under certain circumstances, because they've been burned in the past by trying to overstay for plates, and so they thus correctly prioritize recalls. But you shouldn't always prioritize recalls. The best part about killing or forcing your opponent to recall is that while they're in base, you're able to then generate additional gold from minions and turrets that you then get to put towards your items once you recall, and then leverage against your opponent when you get back to lane. For this reason, you actually want to overstay as long as possible in order to get as many minions and turret plates as you can before basing, to further increase the potential item lead you will have over the opponent. But of course, you do still need to get your recall in, which is why you need to pay attention to the arrival time of the next wave and how it correlates to your opponent's speed out of base. In this replay, our hero Azir player is doing real well in lane. So well in fact, this guy just got a solo kill. Great job Azir. Now here comes the part where we get that invisible mistake. Azir pushes in his wave, and now he needs to start thinking about that recall. He's been burnt before, he knows that with 1600 gold, and with no health and no mana, if he's still here when Tarn gets back, he's going to be in a terrible situation. So normally what we'd do is take a plate, pop a recall, would be pretty happy. But we know we can save for more for a certain reason. Pay attention to Tahm Kench's death timer. 4 seconds. That means Tahm Kench is standing right here in his fountain. Now pay attention to where our minion wave is that's coming out of base. It's standing at our tier 2 tower currently. Now, the enemy minion wave is obviously mirrored to this, meaning that it's here. Look at the positioning of the minion wave. Look at the positioning of Tahm Kench. What that tells us is that because the minion wave is so far ahead of him, we're going to have time to clear out the whole minion wave before he gets back. And for that reason, we don't need to recall off of the first wave. Off of the first wave, we can take turret plates. Off of the second wave, since we know we'll have time to kill it, we can take our recall. And thus our Azir can overstay and take more tower damage and more minions. So after this point, Azir is basically gaining additional gold. He's passively generating gold, he's taking a full cannon wave of gold, in a different situation, maybe turret plates as well. And now after getting this entire cannon wave and passive income of his gold, Tahm Kench arrives, but he's cleared the wave, so he can pop a recall for free. And good news is that because he overstayed, he gets enough gold to finish his Gnasher Tooth from the passively generated gold and from the cannon wave. Now when he comes back to lane with a full item against nothing, you can start to imagine how this lane's going to start to go. So don't just mindlessly recall next time you crash a wave and are low on health. Check if you'll have time to kill the next wave or not. As a bonus tip, sometimes TP can be used as a really good tool to pull this off as well. If you get a kill and have your TP up, it might be worth overstaying like a greedy piggy in order to hit the tower and take extra minions. Then when your opponent gets back to lane, you'll be stuck in lane, but you can just base and TP back and all the problems you have will just go away. And of course, with all the extra gold you just earned, your item lead once you TP back will be insane. Moving on, here's a little something you can think about in draft. I've explained once or twice on this channel already that the armor growth you get from level ups is substantially higher than the magic resist growth you get from level ups. Most champions gain about 80 armor from level ups over the course of a game, but will only gain 20 magic resist at the same time, meaning in the late game, if you do physical damage, you always need to build a percentage armor pen item, even against enemies who haven't built an armor item. Whilst on the other hand, people who do magic damage can hold off on buying a percentage magic pen item until the enemy actually itemizes some resistance against them. Now, let's take a second and think about how all of this relates back to the drafting phase. There are a few ways we can think about this. For simplicity's sake, let's exclude support from our examples because support doesn't deal any damage anyway. Now, what you might do in draft is pick 3 champions that deal physical damage with 1 mage that deals magic damage. This way the enemy is more inclined to build armor since 3/4 of your team does physical damage. Well, if they do that, they run into a problem, that your 1 magic damage dealer will do absurd amounts of damage since they don't have any resistances against them, since the enemy doesn't get magic resist from level ups or items in this case. This way of thinking is really popular in pro play since you're obviously putting a lot of trust in that one member of your team to perform, and pro players of course trust their teammate, so you'll very often see a meta in pro play of 1 solo AP on a team. Another way of thinking of things is that since armor growth is so much higher than magic resist growth, shouldn't we draft more magic damage on our team comp in order to make use of the fact that the enemy has lower base magic resist? I personally love this way of thinking, but the mistake you may be running into is that you're taking this logic too far. If you draft 3 champions that deal magic damage and 1 champion that deals physical damage, you'll run into a problem. The enemy will of course itemize mostly magic resist since 3/4 of your team this time does magic damage, leaving the door open for your solo AD champion to hard carry the game. The problem is, your solo AD champion will still be attacking enemies with over 100 base armor even if they don't build armor against him because of the armor growth per level, meaning your AD champion will still have to dedicate a massive proportion of their gold into buying a percentage armor penetration item against enemies who aren't itemizing against him. Now you can see the problem. A solo magic damage user can spend every single bit of gold they have on stacking massive amounts of flat magic pen, meaning they will very quickly begin dealing true damage to enemies who have no MR. Then they can round out their build with a very early death cap, because they just simply don't need to worry about building an item like Void Staff at all. A solo physical damage dealer on the other hand doesn't have the luxury of just buying 5 lethality items plus boots. They'll be forced to build a percentage armor pen item just to counter enemies' base armor. So PSA, don't draft 3 AP, 1 AD team comps. Instead, go closer to 50-50 or leave a mage as your solo AP, preferably something with area of effect damage like Karthus or Ziggs as your solo AP. If you have faith in your teammates, of course. Which you probably don't. The next hidden mistake you might be making is over-pushing in matchups where you already have full control over the wave. Here our Vayne top player is against Shen. Shen has no area of effect damage and so he can't kill minions very quickly, not to mention the fact that he's playing melee versus range. When the minion wave arrives in lane, Shen is literally sitting in a bush, making no attempt to contest push. So for these reasons, push is already guaranteed for our Vayne player and she could just stop at 1 or 2 hits. Yet despite this, she's still attacking the wave for no reason. When Vayne auto-attacks this minion 4 times, she of course kills the minion more quickly. Now that the minion is dead, it stops dealing damage to his friendly minions. Thus, this friendly minion stays alive for longer, dealing more damage to this enemy minion that it switches target to. Since that enemy minion dies more quickly now, it stops dealing damage to this friendly minion, which of course stays alive and continues dealing damage and, well, you get the point. The snowball begins. The problem with this is that this substantially speeds up the rate at which the wave pushes into Shen. Just like our Vayne player here, a lot of people make the mistake when trying to push to get level 2 first, but what is the urgency in this situation to race for 2 first? You're already ahead by 3 minions in bush. If it comes down to a race, you'll win comfortably. All of these auto attacks she's doing just speed up the rate at which the wave pushes into the enemy, preventing her creeps from dying, all at a moment where she can easily zone her opponent from last hits. Because of overpushing, Shen was only zoned from 1 minion and got a total of 10 out of 12 possible last hits out of the first 2 waves. Now let's take a look at my recreation of the same situation. Now, since I know push is guaranteed in this matchup, I don't attack the minions at all except in order to take the last hits. I can already zone Shen from hitting the wave since I'm range versus melee, and this is enough to give me priority. I also don't need to race for level 2 in order to get it first, and once I get level 2, Shen just gets completely zoned and it now becomes impossible for him to get any of the last hits. Because I didn't speed up the push by auto-attacking the wave early on, I get to perform a 3-wave crash, which gives more time for the minion waves to kill my minions, zoning Shen from far more minions when compared to our previous example where the Vayne was over-pushing and just feeding minions into tower for him to catch in safety. An extremely vivid memory I have from my pro play days from years ago is something crazy I learned from a scrim. It was level 1 and we were pulling ahead in push in the race for level 2. Since I knew we'd get level 2 first, I walked up to look for trades in order to create volatility. For some reason though, my opponent just every game made it extremely easy for me to hit them for free. I remember laughing at how bad they were during the game because they were just taking free damage. It wasn't until after the match when I went back and watched the replay that I realized the enemy was taking damage on purpose. By attacking an enemy champion, it causes nearby minions to target you. If the enemy minions are attacking you, they aren't attacking your minions, which means your minions stay alive and continue dealing damage, thus speeding up the push. My opponent was intentionally letting me hit him, since when I hit him, it would speed up the rate at which the wave would push into him, which not only prevented the minions from dying until a period where he wouldn't get zoned from the last hits, but it also unintentionally would speed up the push so that I'd accidentally do a 2-wave crash in situations where I intended to do a 3-wave crash. Shout out to Jinjo for humbling my ego with that trick. I thought he was an inter, turns out I was the inter. Now let's talk about League's most misunderstood objective, Rift Herald. Most of the time people are happy with the result that if they place a Rift Herald and get a tower with it, that's good. And sometimes you can be happy with this result, especially if it's expiring soon or if you're in a losing game and you won't get another chance to place it. But usually this will not be an optimal use. So let's talk how to properly spot where the best moment to use a Rift Herald is. You're looking for 2 things when thinking to place a Herald down. The first are points of pressure. Anytime a minion wave crashes into a turret, it creates a new place on the map where the enemy has to defend. If you have a minion wave crashing into tower in 1 lane, you have 1 point of pressure. And if you have waves crashing into towers in 2 lanes, you now of course have 2. When attacking in just 1 place, any defending enemies under a tower can hold off a disproportionate amount of attackers. As an analogy, think about the 300 Spartans and that choke point they used in order to fight off 1,000,000 elephants or whatever the hell they were doing in that movie. This is why you want to look to place Herald when you have multiple points of pressure. It starts to simply overload the enemy by stretching them thin across the entire map. You see, every wave that hits a tower also forces an enemy to show on vision and defend in that place, and this is the second thing you're looking for with a good Herald placement. It's a game of numbers where you're comparing how many people are attacking against how many people are defending, and in how many places do those defenders have to defend as a result of your points of pressure. Here's an example of a badly used Rift Herald. Blue team have 3 members on the map that they can attack with, while red team has potentially up to 4 members alive they can defend with. And finally, we only have our mid-wave crashing into the enemy tower, giving us just 1 point of pressure. So, can 3 people attack against 4 defenders in just one place? No, they can't. The math just doesn't add up to a good result, so it's bad. Yes, blue team did get the mid tower with the Rift Herald charge since it was low on health, but that's it. Placing Rift Herald forced 2 enemies to come mid and defend against them. Then when blue team swings into the enemy bot side, only to realize they don't have any mini waves here, so they can't capitalize on the fact that Rift Herald drew 2 people to defend mid. And that's the problem with placing Rift Herald with only 1 point of pressure. You place the Herald, maybe you even get something in that lane, but there's no step 2 to the sequence, since there's just nowhere else on the map that you can go. So to see what a good use of Herald looks like, we just have to play that numbers game we talked about. Now, the replay starts off with us getting this pick on Mbessa, really nice. Now let's pause for a second and look at the 2 things. So first is points of pressure. Well, the top laner is dead, so this wave very soon is going to be crashing into top, giving us a point of pressure. Mid-wave, looks like our bot lane's probably going to get prio, we'll see how it works out, but that is potentially a point of pressure. And bot lane has already drawn 2 enemies to bot lane. So at this moment, we have 3 points of pressure spread across the entire map, which is the most you can have. Now let's play that game of numbers. We have 5 people on the map to attack with. With their dead top laner, the enemy has 4 on the map to defend with. So we're attacking with 5 people against 4 people in 3 different places, which spreads them thin. Bot lane already has drawn 2 enemies to it, so there's 1 enemy who can't come top because he's dead, there's 2 that can't come because they're bot lane. This makes for a great time to place the Rift Herald. 5 against 4 in 3 places, and this is where they get overwhelmed, just like I'm talking about. We get the top tower, we get the second one, but it doesn't have to stop there, because any people who would come top to defend anyway would be leaving mid open. Any people who come mid to defend would be leaving top open. And anyone who goes bot lane to kill our top laner, well, they just lose their whole base in the process, because they're stretched thin across the map, and the math just doesn't add up. One of the most underrated uses for Rift Herald is simply using it to create a new point of pressure on the map where you don't have one. If your team is pushing in mid and top, and your bot wave is super far away, don't fear. You can just place Rift Herald bot, and suddenly bot lane becomes a point of pressure because of the Rift Herald. If enemies come bot to defend the Herald, which they most likely will do, you can then swing into mid while they're stuck bot lane and just dive the under-defended teammates they left mid. And then maybe you can even go as far as to then swing into top lane afterwards, since you have so many options of places you can attack while the enemy is drawn to the other side of the map. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that every good Herald use has to be this perfect, because they don't all have to be, but I so often see a team do a simultaneous 3-wave crash in every single lane, and the guy with the Rift Herald walks over and farms a Gromp camp instead of placing it. Only for the same guy minutes later to walk up and just randomly place Herald in front of a tower when no other lanes are acting as a point of pressure. So don't be the guy who settles for half-healthing a tower with a Herald charge. Wait until you have at least 2 or 3 points of pressure first, or at least get a pick on an enemy so the numbers advantage is starting to tip in your favor. Now, as a final reminder, that special link to my skill cap course is in the video description below and in the pinned comment, so go check them out now. Otherwise, thanks everyone for watching. As always everyone, have a great day.